This week, here on our free preview on YouTube, join us as we take a look at why are Americans still feeling like they're living paycheck to paycheck. Sit back, relax, and join us as we take you through the numbers. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lindsay.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Happy early Halloween.
It is. I know. And we got a little blast of fall weather. I guess not even fall, but I saw snowflakes this morning. I'm not sure if you did.
Right over.
Just jumped.
Yep. I was a little alarmed by that this morning. The snowflakes coming down on our freshly carved pumpkins.
Oh, that's no fun.
Yeah, minus the snow. But yeah, that's what we did this weekend. We carved pumpkins, which if your parents out there, quickly becomes your job. They maybe take it as far as a few handfuls of the guts and
goo,
and the kitchen gets a mess and
perfect.
You end up carving 4 pumpkins. So actually, our oldest did a lot of hers by herself. So
that's fun.
So that was exciting.
Oh, I can't wait to see the artwork at the end of the day.
Yes,
or yours maybe. I'm not
Mine.
sure.
Yeah, I take it very seriously.
I bet you do.
One of our kids came up to us and said, "This pumpkin is so clean, and why is this pumpkin so clean and none of the other ones are?" And I just looked at her and I said, "Well, because Lindsay's a perfectionist." But yeah, so it was really fun.
That's awesome.
We did a lot of Halloween stuff this weekend.
Nice.
Trick-or-treating a little bit early, which was nice, and in the daylight.
Oh,
I
even
think
better.
that all towns should do that.
Yeah, it seems a little safer.
Yeah, but lots. So we have a fox, a seahorse, a robot, and a blow-up Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
So quite the eclectic mix there of costumes. That's so fun.
What's happening in your house?
So we have a baby sloth in our house. I think this is the last year I'll get to pick the costume.
No, you have a few more.
Do you think I do?
Yeah.
All right, I hope so.
And then they surprise you.
Yeah?
And you have to kind of just give up when they want to be the superhero or the princess.
Perfect.
And then they surprise you with adorable things like a fox and a robot and a seahorse.
I love that.
I know.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I know. The costumes are so fun these days. And for the extra charge of $25 in shipping, Amazon can get it to you before Halloween.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's what I fear is the last minute change of mine. So hopefully you don't face that this week.
No, there is no option for that.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, but great. Looking forward to the festive week ahead.
Absolutely.
And jumping right into the headlines.
Yes.
As we do. So our first headline of the day. So paycheck to paycheck. What, who, where, and why? So living paycheck to paycheck is a nebulous term. This article digs into using the Bank of America, their internal data to estimate the share of households with a high portion of necessity spending. That's kind of what their research is based on here.
Right.
Some survey data plus looking at these folks' actual accounts. The article looks at this from the perspective of both generational and geographical differences in the proportions living paycheck to paycheck, and talks about many of those spending pressures that lead to paycheck living is with regards to necessity spending and lower incomes. So according to their analysis in 2023, around a quarter of all households fall into this camp. So I think it's important for us to start with a baseline discussion of defining what exactly living paycheck to paycheck is.
That is the real problem. And so we could talk for the rest of this episode about what does it mean to really live paycheck to paycheck?
Yeah.
Is it how you feel? That was my big takeaway actually from this article is comparing the survey to the actual drilling in, right? Bank of America went and they can see, what is your direct deposit being dumped in and then what are the expenses going out. And the difference between those two things, the fact that sentiment really overstated people living paycheck to paycheck and said almost half of survey respondents against only 26% when they looked at that kind of dollar in, dollar out methodology, we sometimes feel worse off than we actually are. So I found that fascinating just in how our brains work. But yes, if you look at the methodology, how many they took this measure of necessity spending that included, they said, but is not limited to, but the definition that we have to go on is childcare, external credit card payments, gasoline, general retail, which I'd love a better breakdown of there. Grocery, housing, so either your mortgage or your rent, insurance, cable TV, broadband, public transportation, tax payments, vehicle costs, and vehicle payments. And so if that spending category exceeded 95% of their income, this household or account, I guess bank account, was determined to be living paycheck to paycheck. So not saving that much, not spending in fun areas. But
I thought something funny, and I don't know if you said it, but one of the things that was listed in there, I think, was subscription costs.
Yeah.
Which I feel like back in the day, at least, like that was the first thing when subscriptions became a big thing. Everybody was like, cut your subscriptions. They were these apps that would go through and like filter through your bank account and be like, these are what you're paying. These monthly little tiny payments that all add up.
Right.
But then it was like, cut your cable costs.
Cable. So cable TV, like, is that a necessity? Kind of, right?
Then you're turning around and subscribing to YouTube TV or Netflix or Hulu. And so yeah, I just found that to be such an interesting calculation compared to probably 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Right. All of the things, included in here. But so anyway, that's their definition, which I mean, we could pick at, right? Is that really, are all of those really necessities? Are they choices that you make that fall into those category? I mean, it counts grocery costs, but not going out to eat. Well, yeah, we have to eat. So grocery is the cheap way to do that. What if I go and I buy caviar at the grocery store, right? Is that still a necessity? There are choices. So what I really, and again, not to pick on the article, they're doing the best they can with the data that they have. They're not breaking down everyone's receipt like we've done here, my goodness, on the past.
But I do think, who better to do it, though, than Bank of America? And I like and appreciate that they used and leveraged both their internal data and the sentiment with the survey. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I did like reading this. This was interesting.
It was very interesting. So
I guess like that's how they're measuring. It was, what was the threshold? 95%?
95%. They also looked at 90%. So that was a slightly higher. It was closer to 30%.
So 90
households.
To 90.
But 95 was their just kind of cut paycheck to paycheck was 95% of income.
Went towards that necessity spending.
Correct.
So let's break it down like the headline did, the what, who, where, why.
Sure.
So who is living paycheck to paycheck?
Well, clearly lower income cohorts, right, are less money coming in, less money to spend, right? If you're a lower salary, you're easier to hit that 95% threshold.
Right.
What I found fascinating was that 20% of households earning more than $150,000 fell into this category of living paycheck to paycheck. So this is where I really said, is there some discretionary spending creep that's happening here?
Kind of like getting into the necessity, discretionary is kind of filtering into necessity.
That's the thing. If it is my vehicle payment, just to use a no topical example in your life, I'm not, maybe I choose to buy a luxury car or, lease a luxury car. I have a very high kind of monthly payment on that car. It's not that I need that car. I could do with a beater, but that's my car payment. And so car payments are a necessity. That's included. Maybe I'm underwater on a huge mortgage. And there are choices that you can make that they don't fit what I think of when I think living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
So for 20% of households that are earning $150,000 or more, for them to be spending, I think a better way to say it than living paycheck to paycheck is spending 95% or more of their earnings.
Yep.
We can have that lifestyle creep as we earn more, right? We kind of spend up to that point. We want the bigger house, the fancier car, the, bougie childcare, whatever it is that still can fall within this category. It just means we're not saving.
Yeah, definitely. And I imagine when you've established a lifestyle and then something like inflation happens where it really hadn't happened prior in your working career, like you're all of a sudden like, I am making more money than I have ever made in my life. I feel like I am busting my butt. And I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, like looking for when that paycheck is coming in on the calendar to see if I can make it, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Unfortunately, we do. That's human nature, right? We can get ourselves in these kind of knots. Now, I will also mention Bank of America didn't have full access to like brokerage accounts. So there's a possibility that a lot of these households do have stock market is performing very well right now, right? Maybe you're getting additional income from those kind of investment sources. So households could appear to be living paycheck to paycheck, but they're actually doing great just in the accounts that Bank of America wasn't considering.
Okay.
Again, a lot of caveats with this. I really love the information, but we do have to take it with a grain of salt.
Right. And what about that generational element? Did they talked a
They
little bit about,
did.
kind of in the WHO category, the generational difference of living paycheck to paycheck?
Exactly. It was interesting to me that baby boomers actually scored the highest as living paycheck to paycheck. It was.
I get that though. I feel
Yeah?
like, I'm like, here my parents are empty nesters. They don't have people living in their houses that they're paying for. And I feel them, like they talk about living paycheck to paycheck more than my sister and I who have families.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
It's true.
I wonder there, I guess the first question that came to mind with the baby boomers, is it like an educational difference? Is it that they've been in the workforce for so long that their wages have not kept up because they kind of came in low and
Right.
you can only get these incremental raises unless you leave a company and start a new job?
And they were less likely to do it. Yeah, I think that could be part of it. Again, their incomes are typically higher, but they're at the upper end, right, of seniority. I was wondering if some of this is skewed just because baby boomers, they've been earning and saving their whole lives. Well, now it's time to enjoy it and spend it down. So
that's a good.
this wasn't
yeah.
looking at kind of existing savings balances, just, how much of your current paycheck are you spending? So as you're retiring, you're spending more, right? I think some of that could be just normal, natural. It was interesting, traditionalist generation, which they define, I'm sorry, I have the years here. So born pre-1946, that was still included in the survey.
Oh, wow.
They actually had a lower, they were closer to 25%, whereas baby boomers were pushing 30% of households living paycheck to paycheck. So maybe, again, just some kind of generational gap there. But Gen X was slightly better than baby boomers, older millennials slightly better, younger millennials slightly better. Gen Z actually looked pretty good, but while they're all mostly still in school, they don't have a lot of
they haven't
expenses
had
yet. They're
enough
still
runway.
living at home, so to speak. But yeah, that is an interesting breakdown.
Yeah, for sure. And then what about the geographical component? So where are people more likely to be
Yes.
living paycheck to paycheck?
Big difference here. Again, we can overlay some income charts and see, I think there are co-correlations happening here. But the South to South Atlantic region scored the worst, so to speak. They had the highest percentage living above that threshold. And the Northeast to Mid-Atlantic, that was the best. Almost actually very similar to the Midwest and East, North, Central.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind there is the cost of living. Like I've always thought when you go south, especially along like the East Coast, you're just getting towards a better cost of living. And it used to be, as my friends would migrate down there, their salaries weren't that great either. But now with this distributed workforce and this work from home, you have folks making a Boston-based salary living in North Carolina, South Carolina.
Right.
So I also find it kind of hard to think paycheck to paycheck in that scenario.
Let me add a little caveat by defining the South Atlantic division that I was just picking on. That does go up to Delaware, D.C. Is a big one. So yes, you have Florida, you have Georgia, you also have Maryland, slightly higher cost of living, North and South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia. And so that lowest share, the Northeast Mid-Atlantic region, that's New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, which historically do have much higher incomes.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. And we kind of dug into this, why are some households living paycheck to paycheck? And it sounds like it's a little bit of a nuance in the data and lifestyle choices, really.
Yes.
But I think that's not to say that there's definitely still a bracket of people that are living paycheck to paycheck where this inflationary environment has truly impacted
Absolutely. And in the typical way that we think of, right? Someone really struggling, doing their budgeting, not saying, hey, I got a raise, I'm going to go buy a new car, right? It's very different in that case. And so it seemed from the reasoning, again, as the study determined it, that it was the increase in spending much more so than the kind of paced increase in income that was really the limiting factor. So we do have choices, right? But prices are generally up across the board. So that is causing the pinch.
Okay. That's all the time we have for today here on our free preview on YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to subscribe to full-length episodes, click on the link in the description below. But until next time, bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lindsay.